Good day, students. Once again, I am going to be doing another topic by the name Creditors Reconciliation Statement. And I have prepared already a skeleton of the ledger account, which is the creditors ledger of ABC Ltd. And I also have provided just a rough draft of the skeleton of the creditor statement, meaning a statement that we received from the people whom we buy inventory on credit, and those people are called creditors. And in this case, that creditor is ABC Ltd. Then after I already provided again the creditors reconciliation statement in terms of how it will look like. And I will not be using an exercise, but I will be developing an exercise in this introduction. It's kind of an introduction or an overview on what creditors reconciliation is all about, and in terms of what are the major things that you must take into account and how to record in the creditors reconciliation statement. So now that my target is the creditors reconciliation statement, remember this ledger account is the creditors ledger, and we know that creditors ledger increases on the credit side and it decreases on the debit side. And we know that this is a liability account. And now the minute in the creditors ledger everything has been recorded correct, that means the statement will be incorrect. Therefore, now we have to do the reconciliation. That is the only time a reconciliation can be done, only if the statement that is received from the creditor is incorrect. So now the minute the statement is incorrect or incomplete, therefore there is a need for us to do the creditors reconciliation. And today my target is to do the reconciliation, not the correction of the creditors ledger. So now that means whatever I record in my creditor statement must be incorrect so that I can do the adjustment in the creditors reconciliation statement or in the creditors reconciliation. So now we're saying that we have a ledger account called a creditor. And I will just randomly bring any random amount so that I can work with the real figures. Let us say we have an opening balance of 70,000 in our creditors ledger, and assume that that opening balance is the same as in the statement in terms of the opening balance. And once again, remember, after we have recorded all the entries in the creditors statement, the balance at the end becomes a balance per statement in the creditors reconciliation. So far, I will not record anything in the creditors reconciliation, only after I have recorded the first entry. Now, very important to take note in the creditors ledger account is the fact that we have 4 items that we record in this ledger account. We record the purchases. If let us say we buy inventory from our supplier and we buy that inventory on credit, so now all the purchases will be recorded on this side, or all the buying will be recorded on the credit side, meaning when we buy inventory on credit, it will be recorded on the credit side, increasing our liabilities. Remember, when we buy inventory, our suppliers, they are selling inventory. They will be recording that as sales. They will be recording this as sales on their point of view. So now when they are recording sales, it means their sales will be, or their debtors will be increasing on the debit side and decreasing on the credit side. But on our side, when we buy inventory on credit, our liabilities will be increasing whenever we buy inventory on credit from our supplier. Remember, this is the creditors ledger, so we are buying everything on credit. And secondly, another item that will affect our creditors ledger account, it is inventory returned. Meaning if we return inventory, that will be recorded on the debit side, indicating that our creditor will be decreasing by the value of the inventory that we have returned back to them. Then another item that will affect our creditor will be a discount that we have received. If let us say we are given a discount by our creditor by paying on time, that discount will reduce our creditor. Then after, if we are making a payment to our creditor, which will be in the form of bank, or let me say payment, we are paying our creditor. So now that will also reduce our creditor on the debit side. So now these are the only 4 items that will affect our creditors ledger. And please do remember, once again, as I said, that everything that I will be recording in the creditors ledger will be correct, so that if this is correct, it means my information recorded in the creditors statement must be incorrect, so that if this statement is incorrect, I can do my creditors reconciliation. So now remember, the purpose is to reconcile. So now that means my statement must be incorrect and my ledger account must be correct, so that I can do my creditors reconciliation in this note. So now these are the major things that get to be recorded in the creditors ledger. And one thing that you also need to take into account with regards to the creditors reconciliation is the fact that it increases on this side and it decreases on this side. And once again, we are doing creditors reconciliation from the perspective of the business. Remember, when I'm saying from the perspective or from the viewpoint of the business, I mean that, remember, if we buy inventory, our creditors, they increase on the credit side. And if we pay our suppliers for what we previously bought on credit, our suppliers will decrease on the debit side. And if we return inventory, it will be recorded on the debit side of the creditors ledger. So now similarly, when we do the creditors reconciliation, we do it from the point of view of us as the business buying on credit from our supplier. So now with that being said, let me then go back to my creditors ledger account. And now before I start recording the figures, I want to bring your attention to some important information in terms of the structure of the creditors reconciliation statement, or in terms of what to take into account when we do creditors reconciliation statement. There will be a balance per statement, which is an opening balance that we will find out immediately or sooner. Then it says we have to add adjustments if balance is underestimated or understated, meaning the minute the balance is understated by the amount that has been incorrectly recorded or omitted, therefore now we need to add that because it is underestimated. But we need to less the amount or an adjustment if the balance is overestimated or overestimated. So now meaning we have to less. Remember, when you say less, this will mean the debit side, and when you say plus, this will mean the credit side, because our creditors increased on the credit side and they decreased on the debit side. They decrease because of the return, they decrease because of the payment, they decrease because of the discount that they grant to us. So we need to be mindful of this, to the adding and the subtraction when the balance is understated and when the balance is overstated. So now this is something that, or my base, that I will regularly be coming and refer to this base in every transaction that I am recording where necessary. So now we are focusing on doing the creditors reconciliation. And now I will randomly begin by saying, remember, the opening balance was just a figure coming out of my mind, that's 70,000. And also this 70,000 was just a balance coming out of my mind, so that we start with a specific amount. And with that now being said, let me start recording in my creditors ledger account. Assume that we buy inventory on credit, and when we buy inventory, we can say purchases or we can say inventory. That will depend. If you want, you can say inventory or you can say purchases. But what is important is the fact that we buy inventory on credit, and assume that the 55,000 is the value of the inventory or the cost of the inventory that we bought. Remember, I said to you that the ledger account is always correct. So now let us say we recorded that on the first day of the month, assume that was the first. Then after we go and we check the same date on the statement where they say sales or goods, sometimes they can say goods. Assume that they have recorded this as 55,000 and it's a correct amount, and they record it on the credit side. So now we see that on the same date of the first, and remember I said to you that we have to always acknowledge that the statement is wrong so that we can do the reconciliation. Assume that the amount of the purchase of inventory was recorded correct in the ledger account, but when we go to the statement, we discover that there is a correct amount of 55,000 rands. Please don't worry about the site in which I record the amount. The purpose of this exercise is to make mistake and correct the mistake in the creditors reconciliation. That's why when I record, I will not look at the correctness and the accuracy of the amount, but I will make the amounts incorrect in this statement, which is the creditor statement, so that I can make some corrections or some reconciliation. So now we had an opening balance previously, which was 70,000. Then after we have 55,000 recorded on the credit side of the statement. Therefore now it means it's a negative minus 55,000 rands. Therefore now this means the balance that will be left will be 15,000 rands after the recording of 55,000 rands. So now we have to make a correction in this case. Remember, we have recorded 55,000 correctly on the right side, but when we come here, we like, no, if the creditor is selling inventory to us on credit, that's supposed to be increasing on the debit side, increasing their debtors. So now that means they have recorded the 55,000, which is the right amount, but on the wrong side. So now by recording the 55,000, which is the right amount, on the wrong side, that means that amount has understated our balance, because our balance had 55,000 be recorded on this side. If 55,000 was on this side, that will mean the balance was going to be an amount of 55,000 rands plus 70,000 rands. That means the correct balance was supposed to be 125,000 rands. This is the balance amount it was supposed to be. So now we can see that the current balance is an amount of how much? It is an amount of 15,000 rands. And this balance is underestimated because it was supposed to be how much? It was supposed to be 125,000 rands. So now it means we have to cancel this amount by recording it on the debit side. Remember, we are doing the creditors reconciliation. I'm just using this as an explanation. And if I cancel this, meaning it will become 0, then after I have to record the right amount of 55,000 on the debit side. So the total that I would have recorded would have came up to 110,000 rands. That will be the total of the amount that will be corrected. So now remember, we are just doing this as an explanation. So now the minute an amount is recorded on the wrong side, please take note of this. If the amount is recorded on the wrong side, we need to cancel that amount by recording it on the opposite side. Then after cancelling that amount, we need to record the correct amount on the right side. Remember, now that we know that we need to go and we cancel these purchases corrected in the creditors reconciliation. So now we have to say this amount, remember, it understated the balance. And when the balance is understated, remember the rule say that if the balance is understated, we need to add if the balance is understated. So now in this case, we add, then after we record the correct amount, or we cancel, then after we record the correct amount. So now let us go to our creditors reconciliation and say purchases corrected. Purchase corrected. Purchase corrected. So in this case, we are correcting the purchase. Remember, there are two things that we'll have to take into account. There is a purchase that must be cancelled. Purchase that must be cancelled. There are two amounts. First of all, we are cancelling the first purchase. So now the first purchase that we are cancelling is the 55,000 rands, where we cancel that 55,000 rands. Then after we say purchase correctly recorded. Purchase correctly recorded. Now in this case, we are recording the correct amount of the purchase. Purchase correctly recorded. Now we are recording the correct amount of the purchase, and the correct amount of the purchase is 55,000 rands, and the right side is credit side. So now meaning the total amount that will be recorded, it is 110,000 rands. Now the question is, why are we recording this on the credit side? Remember, once again, it's also not important for you to record these two amounts separately. You can just save one amount of 110,000 rands, where you just open your brackets and you say 55,000 rands plus 55,000 rands. Then that will give you 110,000 rands. So now, if an amount is correct, but it is recorded on the wrong side, the only thing that you have to do is to double that amount or record that amount twice, of which the first amount is cancelling the amount which was on the wrong side, and the second amount is to record the right amount on the right side. Remember, the right amount is 55,000 rands and the right side is the credit side. Why? Because the reconciliation of creditors is recorded from the point of view of the business. Meaning, if we buy inventory, we know that our creditors are supposed to increase on the credit side. So that is why we make the correction on the credit side. And let me also explain this from a ledger account perspective. Remember, we recorded 55,000 on the right side in the ledger account. And our right side was supposed to be their debit side, but they recorded this amount on the wrong side, and the wrong side was to record this on the credit side. So now, if this amount is on the wrong side, according to our creditor, it means our wrong side would have been recording this amount on the debit side, 55,000 rands. So now it means the mistake that they've done of recording the right amount on the credit side, it means on our point of view is to record this amount on the debit side. So now correcting this will be to record 55,000 in our point of view on the credit side, of which this amount will cancel this amount. Therefore, now we have to record the right amount on the same side, which is the credit side. That is why all the corrections are done on the credit side. Once again, just to repeat what I have said. Now, from the creditor's statement perspective, meaning from the viewpoint of our creditor, now that they have done a mistake of recording 55,000 rands on the wrong side, so it means when they are correcting this amount, they will have to say 55,000 on the debit side. Remember, their debit is our credit. Their debit is our credit. So now the minute they make a correction on the debit side, we are making a correction in our point of view on the credit side. Then now they will make a correction of that 55,000. Then after, they will have to record the right amount of 55,000 on the debit side. But we say no, your correction on the debit side is a correction on us on the credit side. So the 110,000, which will be their correction on their debit side, is the one that we record in our point of view, because they are liabilities to us, so they are increasing on the credit side. That is why we have the 110,000 on the credit side. So now let me go again. Remember, I recorded this again on the point of view of us as the business. Let me erase this because it was just for the sake of the explanation. Please don't forget the rule. Don't forget the rule. The rule says that if the balance is understated, therefore we add. And we have identified that by recording the amount of 55,000 on the wrong side, it underestimated the balance, because the balance was less than it was supposed to be if 55,000 was recorded on the debit side. So when the balance is underestimated, then we record by adding, then after, which is cancelling what was there, then after we record the correct amount on the right side. And once again, remember, this 70,000 was an opening balance. Therefore, now, if this was the only transaction that we had, therefore, now that will mean 15,000 was going to be a balance in the reconciliation here. Therefore, now this was going to be an opening balance if this was the only entry that we have. And 15,000 plus 110,000, it gives us 125,000, which is the correct balance had a correct balance had the 55,000 be recorded on this side. So now this was not going to be there. 70 plus 55, we have seen that it gives us the same amount of 125,000, which is the correct amount now after we have accurately adjusted that incorrect amount on the wrong side. So now let me go on that same note, and we have our 55,000 on the credit side. Just erase that. So now I go to the second entry. The second entry is still a purchase. It is still a purchase. Assume that we buy inventory on the second day again. There is another inventory that is bought on credit. There are different entries that I will be dealing with in each of the scenarios, at least 3 up to 4 sometimes. So now we buy inventory, and this inventory is amounting to 40,000 rands. This inventory is amounting to 40,000 rands. So now we have this inventory amounting to 40,000 rands on the second. And we go and we compare with the statement. And in the statement, they are selling inventory to us, remember. So now they will record this as sales. And I said to you, the statement must be wrong at all times so that we can do the reconciliation. So now, assume that they have recorded this amount of 4,000 again by mistake because they have an accountant or a junior bookkeeper who is not experienced. So now they record 4,000 on the credit side again. Then let us check how much is the balance after they've recorded that. So now we have 15,000 plus 15,000 minus 4,000 rands. So now they record that amount incorrectly. So now they end up with a balance of 11,000 rands. The question is, did they record the correct amount of 40,000 rands? The answer is no, they did not record the correct amount. How much have they recorded? They recorded 4,000 rands. Is the 4,000 on the right side? No, it is on the wrong side. Remember, the minute and amount is on the wrong side. That means we have to cancel it on the same side it was recorded. Let me give you that tip. You have to cancel it on the same side, meaning on the same wrong side. In this case, we have 4,000 on the wrong side, and the wrong side is credit. Meaning when we do the creditors reconciliation, we must cancel this on the same credit side. And we have seen that with the 55,000 that was cancelled on the same side, it was recorded incorrectly. So now we have to cancel this by recording it on the same credit side. And now once again, let me go and show you what will this mean. Again, we have recorded an amount of 4,000 on the wrong side. Remember, recording 4,000 on the credit side will obviously underestimate our balance, because had the correct amount of 40,000 be recorded on the right side, assume that 40,000 was recorded on the right side, we need to check how much a balance could have been. A balance could have been 15,000 plus 40,000. So it means the balance could have been 55,000 rands if the right amount of 40,000 was recorded on the debit side. But our balance now came up to 11,000 instead of 55,000. So obviously our 11,000, meaning the balance is underestimated. And when the balance is underestimated, you add. Remember the rule. It said when the balance is underestimated, you add adjustment, and I don't want to say adjustment because I'm not going to record the difference if the balance is understated. So in this case, we have seen that our balance is understated. So what do? We add. Then the question, which side do we add? The answer is we add on the side the creditor is increasing. The creditor is increasing on the credit side, so that is the side that we add in the creditor's reconciliation statement. That is why now we have to cancel the 4,000 on the same side, which is the credit side. Then after we record the correct amount on the same credit side. So now let us go forth and we record this one. Then again we have to say purchase corrected. Purchase corrected. Purchase corrected. And how do we correct this? We have to cancel 4,000 on the same side it was identified to be recorded wrong. Then after we record the right amount, which is 40,000 on the side where it was supposed to be. Remember, a purchase is supposed to be on the credit side. So now this will be a total of 44,000 rands. So be mindful of the fact that if the amount is wrong, it does not matter if the amount is right. Sorry, if the amount is recorded on the wrong side, it does not matter the amount is right, because previously we had the right amount but on the wrong side. But the same principle applies. In this case, we have the wrong amount on the wrong side, but the same principle apply. You cancel the amount on the side it was recorded wrong, or on the side it was recorded incorrect. So now remember once again, from the creditor's perspective, meaning from the perspective of our creditor, the person that we buy on credit, when they are making a correction of this 4,000, they will say debit 4,000, of which this 4,000 will cancel this 4,000. Then after there is 0. So now they have to record 44,000 on the right side. Remember, a debit to them is a credit to us, and a debit to them is a credit to us because they are selling to us, but we are buying from them. So now that means the same total of 44,000 that will appear in their point of view as 44,000 on the debit side is the same 44,000 that appear in our point of view in the reconciliation on the credit side. So I hope now something is sinking bit by bit. So now let us go to the third entry of inventory. The third entry of inventory. Assume now we have a third day. On the third day, there is another inventory that we have bought. We buy inventory now, and we buy inventory for 2,500 rands. And they record that inventory on the statement. And on the statement, we see there's the same date, and our creditor, they are selling inventory. They say sales. And they record this on the debit side as 25,000 rands. So let us first identify or calculate the balance after they have recorded this 25,000 rands. So now meaning it will be 11,000 plus 25,000 rands. So now meaning the balance will be 36,000 rands. Now let us ask ourselves, who is wrong? Remember, the statement is always wrong so that we can do the reconciliation. If the statement is right, we don't do reconciliation. Similarly with the bank reconciliation statement. So now in this case, we say the correct amount is 2,500 in the creditor's ledger. But when we see on the same date, we compare with the statement, we identify that in the statement they recorded 25,000. The question is 25,000 right? The answer is no. Is 25,000 on the right side? The answer is yes. So now the minute is on the right side, there is nothing to be cancelled. You only record the adjustment or the difference between the two figures. Remember, in this case, the difference between the two figures will be 2,500 minus 25,000 rands. So now the adjustment that must be recorded is 22,500. Then now, will this adjustment be on the debit side or on the credit side? Let us check. Now, we have recorded 25,000 on the increasing side, and 25,000 is overstated. Why am I saying 25,000 is overstated? Because 25,000 is bigger than 2,500. So now that means by recording an overstated amount on the debit side of the statement will overstate the balance. And the minute the balance is overstated, there is a rule. The rule says if the balance is overstated, what do? We less the adjustment. So now in this case, meaning 22,500 will be recorded on the debit side of the creditors reconciliation statement. Now I hope this is sinking little bit by bit to you. Now we have to less an adjustment if the balance is overstated. So now let us go and check. We say now our balance is overstated. Let us ask ourselves how much could have been the balance if the right amount was recorded. Remember, if the right amount was recorded, it means it was going to be 2,500. And had we recorded 2.5, how much was going to be the balance? Let us check that one. We previously had a balance of 11,000 plus 2,500. So the correct balance was supposed to be 13,500. But because they recorded now 25,000, we see the balance is 36,000, which is more than what it was supposed to be. So hence I said now, by recording an overstated amount on the debit side, it will always overstate the balance. So now we can see that the balance is more than what it was supposed to be. And the minute that is the case, we less because our balance is overstated. So let us go now to our creditors reconciliation. Then we say purchase adjusted. Purchase adjusted. Our purchase, how is it adjusted? We set 25,000 rands minus 2,500. And which side do we decrease? We decrease on the debit side, 22,500 less. Remember, our creditors decrease on the debit side. So when they say less, meaning it's the debit side of the creditors reconciliation statement. So now I hope now you are getting somewhere little bit by little bit, because in this entry the amount is incorrect but is on the right side. Here the amount was correct but on the wrong side, and here the amount was incorrect but on the wrong side. So please be mindful of those three. Let me just do the last one under inventory. Then after, for the rest, I will only do three because it's the same application of knowledge. So now assume now that we buy inventory on the fourth day. Then on the fourth day, obviously there must be a demand for this inventory. Hence we buy inventory very regularly. We buy inventory for 14,000 rands. And after buying inventory for 14,000 rands on the 4th, we go and check, print the statement at the end of a month, and we see that they recorded this as sales, but remember they are wrong. And they record an amount of 1,400 rands. They record an amount of 1,400 rands. So now by recording an amount of 1.4, remember 1.4 is an understated amount, and the minute we record an understated amount on the debit side, it will understate the balance. The minute we record an understated amount on the debit side of the statement, it will understate the balance. So now in this case, obviously our balance means it will be understated. Let us say 36,000 rands balance before that, and we add 1,400. So now this means we end up with 37,400. Remember, we added a smaller amount than it was supposed to be, only 1.4. So now let us say had the correct balance of 14,000 or correct amount of 14,000 been recorded, how much was supposed to be the balance? It was going to be 36,000 rands plus 14,000 rands. So now that means the balance was supposed to be 50,000 rands. but we recorded the incorrect amount, which is 1.4 instead of 14,000. Now our balance is 37,400, which is lower than what it was supposed to be, meaning by recording an understated amount, meaning an amount smaller than it was supposed to be, on the debit side, it will understate the balance. And when the balance is understated, we add. And which side do we add? We add on the credit side. We add on the credit side of the creditors reconciliation statement. So now that means in this case, we have to say purchase adjusted. We have to say purchase adjusted because we have adjusted this purchase. Purchase adjusted. Purchase adjusted. And it will be the amount of 1,400 or 14,000 minus 1,400. Therefore, now the difference should be added, and we add on the credit side. 14,000 minus 1,400. Therefore, now that means 12,000 should be added back, 12,600, because our credit side in our point of view is running short of 12,600 rands. Remember, we are recording the reconciliation in our point of view that our purchase was underestimated, and we have to increase that on the credit side, though it was done by our creditor. It's more like we are doing the reconciliation for them. So now we are doing reconciliation from our point of view, then they will do it in their point of view, not for them in fact. So now we have recorded this part in the reconciliation, and we know how it impacted, how it underestimated our balance. So now I have touched all the angles that were necessary for the purchases of inventory where the statement is incorrect. Now please don't forget that this balance was going to be the last balance to be recorded in the reconciliation if there was no other entry. So this balance will continuously change according to the entries. Now this balance would have been 36,000 rands, but I'm not going to be continuously recording that balance because the opening balance is always the balance at the end. I only recorded it for the first time, which was 15,000. So now we have touched in all the angles with regard to inventory that is purchased where the statement is incorrect. So now let me go to another date where now we are dealing with the inventory that has been returned. Assume that now we are on the debit side, the return of inventory, and we return inventory amounting to 5,000 back to our supplier. And we go and we look on the same date. Let us say this is the 5th day of the month. We go and we look on the 5th day of the month, and we say that this transaction has been recorded, and they recorded it accurately as their sales. And remember, they are always wrong so that we can do the reconciliation. Let us record that on the wrong side, and we say they recorded 500 on the debit side. It doesn't matter which side we record at. What is important is the fact that we are doing the reconciliation. There must be a problem, then we have to adjust or reconcile the problem. That is the main target of this exercise. So now let us check if has the right amount been recorded. No, the right amount is 5,000. They only recorded 500. Is the 500 on the right side? No, because if they are selling inventory, okay, if they are selling inventory, they're supposed to record on the debit side. So the amount is on the right side, but the amount is incorrect. And the minute the amount is on the right side, you don't have to cancel, you only record the adjustment, meaning the difference between the wrong amount and the correct amount. So now in this case, we recorded an amount, sorry, this is not a sale, this is sales return. It's not a sale, sales return, and they are wrong. So now a return is supposed to be recorded on the credit side. So they recorded the wrong amount, and this amount is on the wrong side. So now we need to cancel. Then after canceling, we need to record the right amount on the right side. So now canceling this from their point of view will mean they'll record 500 on this side, and this will cancel this. Then after, they have to record the right amount on the right side, which is 500 on the credit side, because this was the return of inventory, and the return of inventory will decrease the debtor. Remember, from the viewpoint of the supplier, we are a debtor because they are selling inventory to us. So now if we return inventory back to them, meaning their debtors will decrease on the credit side. But we are treating them as suppliers, meaning as creditors whom we buy inventory on credit from. So now their credit is our debit and their credit is our debit. Hence I say to you that if the amount is recorded on the wrong side, please correct it on the same side it was recorded, because that credit is a debit to us, and this credit is also a debit in our point of view. And beside, by recording the 500 on the debit side, it means we will overstate the balance. And the minute we overstate the balance, it will have to mean that we have to less the amount of 500. Let me prove that to you. Because we recorded 500, we have 37,400 plus 500. So meaning our balance will be 37,900. But had the right amount of 5,000 be recorded on the right side, the right amount was 5,000. Had 5,000 been recorded on the right side, the balance was supposed to be this amount, which is calculated as 37,400 minus 5,000 rands. So now that means this was going to be 32,400. So now by recording the understated amount on the debit side, meaning in the case of the return, by recording an understated return on the debit side, it will overstate the balance. Now, these terms look to be the same because by recording an understated amount in the purchases side or the purchase of inventory is treated a bit differently. So now please master all of them. In this case, we can see that our balance is overstated than it was supposed to be. And when the balance is overstated, we less. And which side do we less? We less on the debit side. And in this case, we are cancelling the first 500. Then after, we have to record the right amount on the right side. Remember, it was done on the debit side, so we still correct it on the debit side. That's why I always say, if the amount is on the wrong side, correct it on the same wrong side. Then after, we have inventory return corrected. Inventory return corrected. Therefore, now we have to record the wrong amount, cancel it on the debit side, and we record the right amount of 5,000 on the right side, which is the debit side. Therefore, the total will be 5,500. Remember, if we return inventory back to the supplier, it's supposed to be on the debit side of the creditor's ledger. So now we take things from our point of view. It was supposed to be on which side? On the debit side. So now that means, once again, their mistake, just to come back to my own explanation, their mistake of recording 500 on the debit side, it means according to us, they recorded this as 5,500 on the credit side in the ledger account, because when they debit us as debtors, it means our liabilities are increasing. So now their mistake of recording an increase of their debtors, it means they are increasing what we owe to them. So hence their debit mistake it could be said it's a credit mistake to us. So we correct in our point of view and say cancel this on the debit side, and we have 500. Therefore now this becomes 0. Then we must record the right amount on which side? On the debit side. So now hence we have 5,500 recorded on the debit side of the creditors reconciliation statement. So now this was the first return, and on the 6th day of the month there is another inventory return. Another inventory return. Now we have an amount of return of 3,000 rands. 3,000 rands, and we see they have on the same date an amount of sales return, because when we return inventory they return that as sales. And remember, the statement must be always wrong. So now they recorded the amount of 3,000, but they recorded is as 300 on the debit side. The question is, once again, is the amount on the right side? No, the amount is not on the right side, because a return is supposed to be on the credit side of the statement. But in our ledger account it is correct. So now how do we deal with this? We correct it on the same side it was recorded wrongly. Remember, this amount is on the wrong side, debit side. And when we correct it again on the same wrong side. The very easy approach that I always use. So we have to cancel and record the correct amount on the same debit side. So now we have our inventory return corrected, and our inventory return corrected will be recorded as 3,000 plus, or let me say 300, which is cancelling the first 300 which was on the wrong side, and recording the correct amount. Therefore now this will end up with 3,300 rands recorded on the debit side. Remember, once again, by recording an understated amount, by recording an understated return on the debit side, will always overstate your balance. By recording an understated return, even if it's overstated, or by recording a return that is either overstated or understated on the debit side, this will always overstate the balance, because this is an amount that was supposed to be recorded as a decrease on this side. So anything that is on the debit side is a plus. So by recording an amount on the debit side which was a return, it will overstate our balance. So now let us check how much could have been a balance, or how much is currently a balance, by saying 37,900 plus 300. So this will end up to 38,200 rands. But had the correct amount recorded, it was going to be 37,900 minus 3,000 rands. So we can see that the correct balance was supposed to be 34,900, but we have 38,000. So when the balance is overstated, which side do we cancel? Remember, it's on the wrong side. When it's on the wrong side, we first have to cancel. Which side do we cancel when the balance is overstated? We less, because it says when the balance is overstated, what do? We less. So now which side do we less? Our creditor. Our creditor decreased on the debit side. This is where the creditor decreased. That is why now the amount is cancelled on the debit side. Then after we record the right amount on the right side, which is 3,000, and the right amount of the return is the debit side. Then the total becomes 3,300 rands. Now let me record only the one last item now of the return. I'm not going to record 4 throughout. Then now will be on the 7th day in the statement and also on the 7th day in the ledger account. Then we have again an inventory return. Inventory that has been returned. And now let us say we have returned inventory of 1,500 and they record that as their sales return. Sales return. And remember, they are wrong at all times. And they record this amount on the credit side as 15,000 rands. So now we see that we have recorded 15,000 rands. Then the question once again, is 15,000 the correct return of sales? The answer is no, 15,000 is incorrect. Why is it incorrect? Because the right amount is on the creditors ledger, 1.5. So by mistake in the statement, our supplier recorded 15,000. Now, by recording an overstated amount of the return on the credit side, by recording an overstated amount of the return on the credit side, it will always understate the balance. So the balance will be understated because we would have reduced the balance too much than it was supposed to be. So let us check and confirm that. Now we first have to say 38,200 minus 15,000 rands. Then we see that our balance will be 23,200. But had we recorded the right amount, which was 1,500 on this side, it could have been 38,200. Remember, before 15,000 was recorded, minus 1,500. So now we can see the correct balance was supposed to be 36,700 rands. So now by recording an overstated return on the credit side of the statement, which is the right side, it will understate the balance. And when the balance is understated, what do? We add the adjustment. So now if the amount is on the right side, we don't cancel anything, we only record the difference. So now let us go and check how much is the adjustment. 15,000 minus 1.4, 15,000, sorry, minus 1.5. This gives us 13,500. That must be adjusted. Remember, the balance is understated. And when the balance is understated, we add. And which side do we add? On the credit side from the creditor's point of view. So now we have our inventory return adjusted. Inventory return adjusted. Inventory return adjusted. Inventory return adjusted. In this case, it's an adjustment. Take note. And now we said it's understated. Therefore, now we have to add, and we add 13,500 rands. 13,500 rands on the credit side. Now let me just explain the other angle. Had this amount been recorded as 150, take note, if this was 150, let me just use a different color because I will not be redoing this. I just want to explain it to you. If we had recorded 150 instead of 1.5, that will mean now what we have recorded is what we have reduced is less than what it was supposed to be. So the balance was going to be overstated. And when the balance is over, because we subtract smaller than it was supposed to be. So when the balance is overstated, we less on which side? Debit side. So the difference was going to be recorded on the debit side of the creditor's reconciliation statement. So now let me leave that part I've just explained. I'm not going to be doing that. But also please do consider all these possible angles in terms of how this can be treated or how this can be reconciled. Now I'm coming to the third element of the creditors ledger and creditors ledger and the statement. We have a discount now. A discount has been given to us by our supplier. Remember, guys, there are different ways we can deal with this. I'm trying as much as I can to give you all the possible angles on which adjustments can be given to you so that you can do creditors reconciliation statement. So now we have a discount that has been received, and this discount must have been 170 rand. We recorded 170, and we go and we look at the statement. The date is very important. The date is the 8th, and on the same date of the 8th we see that there is a discount that our supplier have allowed to us. Discount allowed. Remember, they are wrong. Why the statement must be wrong is because we want to make sure that we do creditors reconciliation statement. So now they recorded 17 rand. Let us look at the balance, how much the balance after 17 rand was recorded. Then we have 23,200 minus 17 rand. So now this will give us an amount of 23,183 rands. By recording, before I go to the rule, by recording an understated amount of the debit side of the creditors ledger, and I'm saying this very deeply, by recording an understated amount of the debit side of the creditors ledger. When I'm saying of the debit side of the creditors ledger, I'm referring to either a return or a discount or a bank. It doesn't matter which one of the three. But by recording an understated amount of one of these three on the credit side of their statement, it will always overstate your balance. Why that's so? Because we have under-reduced our balance, because the credit side of the statement, that is where the data is decreasing. So if this amount is small, it means the balance will be reduced by a small amount, then it becomes bigger than it was supposed had the right amount, which is more than what is recorded, been recorded. So now it means, obviously, by saying that the balance is overstated. Let me prove that it is really overstated. The right amount that was supposed to be recorded is 170. And remember, a discount is recorded on the credit side of the statement because it's reducing the debtor's account. So now that will mean that we would have got a balance of 23,200 minus 170. So now it means our balance was supposed to be 23,030 rand. But here we have 23,183, 33,030 rand. And here we have 183. So the balance is more than it was supposed to be. This is more, this is less. So now, as I said to you, that by recording an understated amount of the debit side of the creditor's ledger, meaning by recording an understated return, by recording an understated discount, or by recording an understated discount, or payment on the credit side, will always overstate the balance. And you can see that the balance is overstated than it was supposed to be. And when the balance is overstated, then we go to the rule. What do we do when the balance is overstated? We less. Which side do we less in the reconciliation? We less on the debit side. Let us go and look at the rule. When the balance is overstated, what do we do? We less. Which side do we less? Is on the debit side. So now going to the reconciliation, meaning the difference must be on the debit side. Then now we have on the 9th, discount corrected or discount adjusted. Remember, in this case, the discount is on the right side. When it's on the right side, there's nothing to cancel, you only adjust. So now we have to say 170 minus 17. 170 minus 17, which gives us an amount of 153. Oh, this is the statement. This gives us an amount of 153 in the reconciliation. 153 in the reconciliation. 153 in the reconciliation. Okay, the first part of the discount. Then we have discount adjusted. Discount adjusted. The balance is overstated. We adjust on the debit side. So now we also have to show some calculations. 170 minus 17. Therefore, we have seen that the balance was overstated and we adjust, meaning we debit. So now we go on the 9th day. On the 9th day. On the 9th day is another discount. Then we say there was a discount that was received. We have received a discount. And this discount was 1,000 rands that we received. Then when we look at the statement on the same date, we see that yes, our creditor does acknowledge that there was discount that was allowed. This ALL is allowed. Or interest expense. We call these days interest expense. Now let us say we recorded an amount of 10,000 on the debit side. The question is the 10,000 on the right side? The answer is no, it's on the wrong side. Is the 10,000 the right amount? The answer is no, 10,000 is not right, because the right amount is on the ledger account, which is 1,000 rands. Therefore, now if 1,000 rands is correct, therefore 10,000 is incorrect. If it's on the wrong side, don't forget, you correct it on the same side it was recorded incorrectly. Remember, the incorrect side in this case is debit side. So now we have to cancel the 10,000 on the same side. Then after we record the correct amount on the same side, it was recorded as an incorrect amount of 10,000. So now we go to our creditors reconciliation and we say discount corrected. And I hope you can see now what is happening in all this recording. Discount corrected, and we cancel the 10,000 on the debit side, and we record the right amount of the discount, which is 1,000 on the debit side, and it becomes 11,000 rands. Now we have taken that into consideration. Remember, once again, in the statement, they would have cancelled this. When they do cancel, they will cancel this on the credit side. They will say, oh, it's on the wrong side, cancel that. Then after cancelling that, they will have to record and say, oh, the right amount is 1,000. Which side is it supposed to be from their point of view? Is on the credit side in their point of view. But their credit is our debit and their credit is our debit. Therefore, now the same 11,000 that they will correct on their credit side will be the same 11,000 that we have corrected on our debit side point of view. Now, we have captured that once again. Then let us go now to the last item of the discount, which must be just the different one. Now, let me first erase the correction from the viewpoint of our creditor. So this is just an explanation for you to understand it in all angles. Now, let me also get the balance first, so that when I continue, I don't struggle going to recalculate the previous balances. I have a balance of 23,183 plus 10,000 rands. Therefore, now that will mean my balance currently would have been an amount of 33,183 rands. So now this will be the balance after the wrong 10,000 was recorded on the wrong side. Then let me go now to another discount, another viewpoint of the discount. If you can see, all these things are similar. The one that are on the debit side, they are treated exactly the same because they all have the same effect in the statement. So the adjustment will likely to be the same. On the 10th, there is another discount, and this discount was also received. And this discount was only an amount of 500 rands. And now let us check which side must this discount be recorded. Let us go and check. We have the 5,000 of the discount, 500 of the discount, and we go on the statement and we see that they acknowledge that they gave us a discount. And I'm recording all the entries. Remember, they are wrong. This is wrong, in case you don't see. They record the amount of 50 rand on the right side. So 50 rand is the wrong amount, but it is on the right side. And by recording an understated amount of the discount or an understated amount of the debit side of the creditor's ledger, and I hope you understand now my language, it will mean your balance will be overstated because you have reduced your balance, since the credit side of the statement is reducing the balance. So now meaning this will be overstated. And once again, if the amount is on the right side, we don't cancel anything. We just record only the difference. So now let me just go there and say 33,183. Then I say minus 500, sorry, minus 50 rand. And if I less 50 rand, it gives me 33,133. So now had the right balance been or amount be recorded, and remember the right amount is 500. Had the right amount be recorded, it was going to be 33,183 minus 500. So now it would have been 32,683. So we can see that the balance is overstated. And why the balance is overstated? Because we recorded a right amount, which is a wrong amount, which is smaller than it was supposed to be. So we can see that if the balance is overstated, what do? We less. Which side do we less? We less on the debit side because our creditor decreases on the debit side. So now we are looking for another discount. Now recording a discount adjusted, and this page is becoming full. Then now we have a discount adjusted. And this discount will be 500 minus 50 rand. And we said the balance is overstated. When it's overstated, we adjust on the debit side. So now we say an amount of 500 minus 50 will be 500 minus 50, which is 450 rands. Very easy amount. So now it said that when the balance is overstated, just to remind you once again, less when the balance is overstated, and we less on the debit side. And we have seen that in this case, our balance was really overstated. It was 33,000 instead of 32,000 something. So now let me proceed on that same note. Almost the closing part now, which is the bank account. Now on the bank account, then we are on the 11th transaction. I'm coming to the bank now on the 11th. Remember, there are some circumstances where this amount might be recorded. I want to raise this to your, give this to your attention, or bring this to your attention. We can record the right amount of 500 in the ledger, but here we completely forget to record. So when this is not recorded, you just record it on the right side, which is the debit side of the reconciliation. If the amount is omitted, meaning the statement is not incorrect but is incomplete. So now you just have to record the right amount, which is 500 on the debit side, because by not recording an amount on the credit side of a discount will mean your balance will be overstated, because had you recorded that amount, the balance would have decreased. So now we go to, and here they say bank because they received money. And let us check how much was received. Let us say an amount of 50,000 was received. So now we go and we check and we say that, okay, they recorded an amount of 5,000 only. And we're like, okay, is the 5,000 on the right side? Yes, it's on the right side. If it's on the right side, is it the right amount? No. Is it is it bigger or smaller? It is smaller. So now if the amount is smaller, it means it will overstate the balance. Why? Because we minus or less than it was supposed to be. 33,133 minus 5,000 minus 5,000. Therefore, now that will mean it will be 28,133. Had the right amount be recorded, the balance was going to go to less than. Obviously, there are still some adjustment that could have been done. It was going to be less than something. So this balance is overstated, and the minute the balance is overstated, that will mean now we have to less, and we less once again on the debit side, repeating almost the same thing, guys, the same thing. So now we go and we record this adjustment of 50,000 minus, let me start the bank now from the beginning because I don't have space and I don't want to go to the new page. Now I'm starting now on the beginning, or in the beginning, recording, continuing with the same entries. What is important is the site it is corrected. Now we have the 11th day, and on the 11th day this will be bank adjusted. We are adjusting the amount of the bank, which was going to be 50,000 rands minus 5,000 rands. This will be 45,000 rands. When it's overstated, we have to increase it, or we have to less it on the debit side. So now that means 45,000 will have to be recorded on the debit side. So now we have noted that, remember, once again, the debit side is the decrease, and previously the amount of 5,000 was recorded on the right side. So 5,000 adding the 5,000 adding 45,000 will give us the amount of 50,000 total on the debit side. So now let me just record the last one under bank. All these things, guys, you can see that they are all looking the same. It's the same application, but very important to master this. So this is bank once again, and we record the amount of 3,000. We are making a payment to our creditor. Then we go and we look at this amount and we say, okay, there is a same date in the statement. Remember, the statement is always wrong. Then we record again another bank, and we say the statement must be wrong, so that we do the reconciliation. Now let me just randomly say, okay, they recorded an amount which is on the wrong side. Let us say they record an amount of 200 rands. Now completely different from my range that I used to. Now they record an amount of 200. The question is 200 of the payment on the right side? No, because when we pay our supplier who treat us as a debtor, they're supposed to decrease us. So they recorded us on the wrong side. So now by recording the debit side entry on the debit side entry of the creditors ledger, meaning by recording any of these entries, by recording either inventory, return, discount, or bank, by recording any of these entries on the debit side of the statement, it will always overstate the balance. Why it will always overstate the balance? Because the entries that we see on the debit side of the statement, which is a return, a discount, and the payment, which is bank, they all supposed to be reducing the balance. So anything that will increase the balance from the return, the bank, and the discount will always overstate the balance. And when the balance is overstated, will less and will less on the debit side. So the difference will be on the debit side of the reconciliation. So now that's why on the 12th we'll have our bank corrected, our bank corrected. And don't forget that when it's overstated, we cancel it on the side it was overstated, on the debit side. In fact, remember, once again, the amount is on the wrong side. First cancel the wrong amount, then you record the right amount on the same side, which is the 3,000. Therefore, now we end up having 3,200 corrected on the debit side. And once again, the statement, when they are adjusting from the perspective of the creditor, they will say minus 2,000 when they are correcting this. So now 200 will cancel that 200. Then after, they will have to record the right amount, which is 3,000 on the right side. And at the end of the day, their net correction or adjustment will be 3,200 rands on their credit side. But remember, their debit is our credit, their debit is our credit, and their credit is our debit. So now they recorded all of this in the credit side. So their credit is our debit, credit our debit. Hence now we have the total of 3.2 on the debit side. 200, we are cancelling that. 3,000 is the right amount. On which side does the payment go? Payment goes on the debit side of the creditor's ledger. That's why we record the 3,000 on the debit side, because we pay our creditor. When we pay them, they decrease on the debit side. So now you can go on and record now the right amount or the wrong amount on the right side, or the right amount on the wrong side. At the end of the day, you will come up with the same figures. So now the last part will just to record the balance at the end. Let me also do the balance there at the end. Then after, this will bring us to an amount of 28,133 rands minus 200. Then this will give us an amount of 27,933. So remember, the right balance would have been a different amount. The right balance had the right 3,000 be recorded on the right side. The right balance was going to be an amount of 28,133 minus 3,000. The balance was supposed to be 25,133. So we can see that this balance is 27,000, but it was supposed to be 25,000. So this balance is overstated, and when it's overstated, we need to cancel this 200 first. Why cancel? Because the 200 was on the wrong side. After canceling the 200, because it's overstated and it's on the wrong side, then we record the right amount, which is 3,000, and this 3,000 is the payment, and payment reduces our creditor on the debit side. That is why now we have this amount recorded on the debit side of the reconciliation as both of them 3,200. Now if you want, you can continue and balance your reconciliation. Then obviously it will balance because all the figures have been accurately recorded. But yeah, I just wanted to give you the overview. Then the matter of the balancing will be your debit minus your credit, and after you have done that, it will definitely be the same as your creditor's ledger. And from here I will stop, but I just want to say on the 13th there can be another entry. You can add another entry on the 13th where the bank is recording an amount of any value. You can choose any amount that you want to choose, and any side it can be recorded in the statement. And whatever the case might be, I think now I've given all enough for you to be able to make or to attempt any type of question in the creditors reconciliation statement. Please take note of these notes that you must master with regard to the creditors reconciliation statement. And also please do remember that if the amount is on the right side, this will be the adjustment. You deal with the difference if the amount is on the right side. But if the amount is on the wrong side, either is right, you just cancel that amount and you record the correct amount on the right side. Let me say, guys, thank you. God be with you. I hope you learned something in this topic. Thank you. See you.